You hear a lot of talk about whether a housing crisis is coming. Well, according to one really detailed analysis, that's the wrong question. It argues the crisis isn't on the horizon, it's already here, and it's hitting 13 specific states hard. So today we're going to break down the data and the arguments behind that claim. Let's get right into it. So let's just start with a quick question to set the stage. 145%. That's a huge number. We'll tell you which state it is in just a minute, but it's a perfect example of the kind of shocking data this analysis is built on. Now, here's a super important point the source makes right up front. This is not a forecast. They're not trying to predict a crash in the future. Their whole argument is that this is a documented reality based on real market data from the end of 2023. They're presenting these as snapshots of what's happening on the ground right now. So how did we get here? Well, the analysis identifies what it calls a perfect storm. A combination of factors that on their own are bad, but when they all collide at once, they create the perfect conditions for a housing market collapse. Okay, let's unpack these three triggers. First, you've got foreclosure activity that is just exploding. And this is the weird part. It's happening during what's supposed to be a time of economic expansion, not a recession. Second, at the exact same time, home prices are starting to fall. That just wipes out equity and pushes even more homeowners toward default. And the third and maybe most critical piece is that the states themselves are broke. They're facing their own fiscal crises, which means there's no safety net to catch anybody. So where exactly is this perfect storm hitting the hardest? The analysis pinpoints 5 states as the absolute top danger zones. Let's go through the evidence they present for each one. At the top of the list is Florida, which the analysis calls the epicenter of this whole thing. Why? Well, it's got the #1 foreclosure rate in the entire country. At the same time, inventory is just surging, up over 50% in places like Cape Coral. But the real kicker, the thing that's really lighting the fuse, according to this source, is the insurance crisis. Premiums have skyrocketed over 300% to more than $11,000 a year. People literally can't afford to stay in their homes. Remember that question from the beginning? Well, here's your answer. A staggering 145%. And yeah, that massive number belongs to Colorado. The state saw the single largest year-over-year jump in foreclosures anywhere in the U.S. The source presents this as a huge shock, a sign of hidden weakness in a market that a lot of people thought was rock solid. The point they make is that this isn't just a slow rise, it's a sudden, sharp reversal of fortune. Coming in at #3 is Illinois. And the report uses some pretty dramatic language to describe the situation there, calling it a pension death spiral. Now, that sounds intense, and it's meant to. It describes a situation where a state's massive underfunded pension liabilities are creating a financial crisis that just spills over into everything, especially the housing market. And here's the data they use to back that up. The state is on the hook for $144 billion in unfunded pensions. It has the highest debt ratio in the entire nation. And this analysis argues that this financial pressure is literally driving people away. Over 56,000 residents packed up and left in 2024 alone. See the cycle? The tax base shrinks, which makes the financial problems even worse, leaving absolutely no money to help when the housing market starts to crumble. #4 is South Carolina, which the analysis calls a silent crisis. It might not be getting a ton of national headlines, but it quietly now holds the second highest foreclosure rate in the country. And the problem isn't just in one city. It's spread across multiple counties, which suggests this is a real statewide economic issue, not just some local glitch. And finally, rounding out the top 5 is California. The source argues this isn't about just one problem. They call it a multidimensional collapse, where a whole bunch of critical systems are all failing at the exact same time. What's really powerful about this is how you can see all the problems stacked on top of each other. California is staring down a massive $58 billion budget deficit. It's losing more people than any other state in the country, and it has the second highest unemployment rate. According to the report, you put all that pressure together and you get what they call dam burst conditions, where the system just can't hold anymore. Okay, so that's the top 5. But the analysis doesn't stop there. It flags another 8 states that have some really serious vulnerabilities brewing. We're going to run through these a bit quicker, but each one has its own unique risk factor. In Texas, the story is all about a massive overbuild. I mean, look at this. Inventory is 53% above normal levels. So why? Well, the state basically built a ton of houses for a migration boom that has since collapsed. Net migration is down 62%. The data suggests that Austin in particular could see some major price drops as this new reality kicks in. This next group is dealing with a whole cocktail of economic and housing stress. You've got Delaware with the nation's highest bankruptcy rate. Nevada, which is so reliant on tourism, has the highest unemployment. In Arizona, the market has hit an affordability wall, and prices are now actually falling in key cities. And Oregon, it just recorded the sharpest single jump in unemployment in the entire country, which is another huge warning sign. And the final three states on the list are all flagged for really deep-seated fiscal crises. In New York, it's the commercial real estate collapse that's starting to cascade into the rest of the economy. In New Jersey, you've got a $92 billion pension hole colliding head-on with rising foreclosures. And Connecticut is facing what the source calls a demographic death spiral. An aging population and departing residents are shrinking the tax base, leading to the highest debt per resident in the country. Phew. Okay, so after all of that, what are you supposed to do with this information? Well, the analysis wraps up with a few key takeaways and some really practical things to keep an eye on, wherever you live. According to the source, there are three main things you should be monitoring. First, don't just look at national news. Check foreclosure filings at your local county level. Second, track your local housing inventory month by month. If you see a big, sudden surge, that's a red flag. And third, really try to understand your state's overall fiscal health. A state that's broke can't step in to help when things get bad. It's also really helpful how the analysis basically sorts these problems into two big categories. On one hand, you have the overbuild crisis, like in Florida and Texas. That's a pretty simple pace of supply just massively outstripping demand. But then you have the fiscal death spiral in places like Illinois and California, which is way more complex, driven by deep structural debt and people leaving the state. So at the end of the day, this analysis is making a really bold claim. It's saying the housing crisis isn't some theory. It's a documented reality that is unfolding as we speak. And that really leaves us with one final question to think about. Using this framework, what warning signs, if any, are starting to become visible where you live?